right, welcome back, everybody. Today we have an exciting company we're going to be introducing on Wall Street Reporter's Discovery Day live stream. That's Overactive Media. It's a fast-growing company in the esports space. As you guys know, we've had some major wins in the esports and gaming sector. ESC Entertainment, Fans Unite, those stocks increased 1,200% and more after being featured on our program. And what's interesting about Overactive Media, OAMCF is the symbol, over the counter, OAM on the TSX. What's, I think, very compelling is that this company actually has proven out their business model. They did $27 million in revenues last year, which is, I believe, over a 70% increase from the year prior. And there's a lot of interesting catalysts for upside potential. So I'm going to, before I introduce the CEO, Adam Adamou, I want to show you guys a clip of what this company actually does, show you some of the engagement of the audience. Okay, let's roll the tape here. Are we getting the sound?
I'm not hearing any sound.
We're not getting, okay, hang on. The video is not, is the video? Okay, let's see. What is going on here? Is the video work? Okay, we have a great video, and why is it not playing? Okay, technical issue here. All right, you know what? Hang on a second. What we're going to do is, oh, this is, I got to show you guys this video because this is amazing. Let me just see if I can do a screen share. Let me just do this. Video file. Here we go. Open. Adam, that to me shows real fan engagement. Can you tell us a little bit about that event real quick?
Yeah, that was just over this last weekend, Saturday and Sunday in Madrid. Our premier esports franchise, movie star Koi, you heard the name there, held. These are regular season games, okay? So this isn't like the World Championship, you know, people all around the world. This is 2 regular season matches, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. Over the course of the weekend, I think we had, oh gosh, like maybe 20,000 people. We had 11,000 people on the first day. And look, everybody that was there said it was the best event of their lifetime, not just like a single thing. It really kind of puts together everything that we can do, because that entire event was created and produced and staffed and broadcast by us. Everything there that you see was done internally through the abilities of Overactive Media, and it's an incredible proof of concept of everything that we can do.
Well, I'll tell you what you know, the takeaway that I'm getting is, you know, you always want to say, like in marketing, you know, it's you know, will the dog eat the dog food, right? Then you know it works, yeah. Right? And you know, for lack of a better word, and when you see, you know, a lot of companies have great concepts. But when the rubber hits the road, they don't, you know, it doesn't work. Right here, we're really seeing product market fit. We're really seeing engagement by, you know, the audience, your customer base, the fan base, all that stuff. So this is really interesting. I mean, this is like real. This is the real deal. I mean, people are, and they're paying to be there, right? This is not.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're not paying them, right? This is people paying money to attend this event. And the esports thing. Look, we're going to get into it in a second. I've talked about this before. Look. Esports is, you know, this is a generational mega trend. You know, the market is you know, multi-billion-dollar market. We've had some, the team valuations exploded a couple of years ago when the thing just started. We had valuations of, $300, $400 million. Things cooled off because a lot of those companies, maybe they didn't get their business model right. You guys have actually proven that your business model works. Again, the revenues is the proof of that. And I'd like to find out more about that. So, Adam, let me bring on your presentation, and I'm going to come back for the Q&A right afterwards. And I'm looking forward to to learning more about this. So let's bring this on, and I will disappear and come back once you're finished. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Can everybody see my screen now? Is that my screen on? Okay, I'm not hearing anybody. Okay, so my screen on? Okay, I'm going to assume my screen is on. If I can't hear anybody else talking here, so my screen
it's all good. Yeah, it's all
okay.
good.
I didn't want to start. I didn't want to start and then realize that I was talking to myself. Okay, all cool. And thanks for sharing that. And you're absolutely right. This is a generational, transformational opportunity for not only for our fans and our sponsors, but also for investors to get in on what really is the ground floor here. Let me just kind of say, because in terms of answer some of your questions there about why what we have created is sustainable and unique. And this new generation of esports that we frankly have created, we are the ones that are pushing this generation of esports, is really that channel to the consumer. Okay, when you see 10, 11,000 people coming into a stadium with that amount of passion, okay, and we've got 100 million fans worldwide, when you can create that kind of a channel, a direct-to-consumer channel, okay, that is priceless. You could spend $1 billion and not be able to get that kind of passion. And I've seen people try to do it, okay? Having 100 million fans that are screaming for you around the world is an incredibly monetizable asset. It's expensive to build. It's hard to do. And you can fail. You can spend the money and not have any fans at the end of the day. And frankly, you guys that are watching this probably have seen cases where somebody tries to create some hype and they just utterly fail. And that video should tell you one thing, okay, that we have succeeded. Every single person in that audience was not cheering for League of Legends. They weren't cheering for their favorite game or their publisher or their influencer. They were cheering for us, for our team. Okay. And that is what I'm going to present to you today, because that is esports and entertainment for today's generation of fans. And that's what Overactive Media is all about. This is just your standard disclaimer that you guys have seen, many times, forward-looking statements, comma, that kind of thing. So I won't go into that, but if you want to rewind at some point and read through it, please feel free to do so. But more important than that, Overactive Media is a global esports and entertainment company for today's generation of fans. And let me tell you, that esports is what comes first, because that is at the heart of everything that we do. Esports plus entertainment. That's what we're selling. That's what builds engagement. And that's what builds the passion that you saw in that video clip. We've been able to develop a diversified revenue model, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We've got recurring digital revenue. That is a key part to what makes us more of a subscription-based model rather than traditional sports team, which is going to get league revenue share or sponsors. We've got a clear path to profitability, and I'll talk about those numbers in a little bit as well, because we're very excited about where we are. But we're also expanding our global presence. We've expanded not only outside of North America into Europe. We've expanded recently into Mexico, into Latin America, and into China. When you have 100 million fans, you can't just be in one area. The average age of our fans is in their low 20s, right? There aren't 100 million 20-year-olds in the US or Canada or Europe, probably, okay? You have to be in multiple locations to be able to do this, and that's why this global platform is incredibly powerful. And we've got the best teams in the top leagues. 2024 was a transformational year. We finished the year, it says 25 million plus. The plus is 2 million more. We finished with $27 million in revenue, our highest ever. Okay, and probably among the biggest in esports, because our margins are really super high, over 60% gross margin. Okay, this isn't low margin, event stuff. This is high margin digital revenue that is driving those revenues up. Okay, we've got a strong balance sheet. Look, we're virtually debt free. Okay, we have virtually no liabilities, and we've got cash on the balance sheet because we're good stewards of shareholder capital. Those digital sales, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. We're forecasting profitability in 2025, but beyond all of this stuff, we're also an industry consolidator. We've got strong chops in M&A, finance, partnerships, and the rest of the things that we need to do. We have easily the best leadership and management team in the industry, and our assets are monetizable. And what I mean by that is that just like I think the Boston Celtics were sold for whatever $5 or $6 billion. We're not at the $1 billion mark right yet for our franchises, but our franchises are worth tens of millions of dollars. Okay, and those are on our books, and we don't owe a penny against them. And if we wanted to sell them, they have strong monetizable value, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So without further ado, let me go forward here. I'm going to start with the numbers because everybody kind of, wants to see those first. As I said, we finished off 2024, $27 million in the top line, 62% gross margin. We've got almost $7 million in cash on hand. We're only worth $34 million. So there's a big opportunity for people to get here on the ground floor. Part of that, I think, is we haven't been out there marketing ourselves. We haven't been out there promoting our stock. We've been working on getting this business model right. And now that we frankly launched our communication strategy because we've got all the pieces together that I can say with a straight face, this is one of the best companies that you'll see out there in the public markets of our market cap. And what we do is pretty easy. Okay, it's pretty easy kind of to describe, but it's kind of harder to do. Okay, and what we do is we create these exceptional teams. Think of them as no different from sports teams. Doesn't matter what game you're actually playing at the end of the day. Let's leave that. Okay, but they're exceptional teams of players with coaches and scouts and all of the rest of the stuff that you would see in your professional normal sports. And we have franchises in the most exclusive professional leagues. So the video game version of like the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, we've got franchises in all of those leagues. Okay. And then what we do is we partner with top influencers, and think of an influencer as like a famous Twitch streamer or YouTube streamer. Our guy's called eBuy. We've got many others. You might have heard of people like Mr. Beast or others out there. These are top influencers that help us to build an audience that is passionate about our brands, and that is the key. I don't want them to be passionate about the influencer. I want them to be passionate about our teams and our brands, and we work on that every day. And by doing that, we develop this consumer channel that I mentioned, reaching hundreds of millions of fans, which is incredibly difficult to do. It's expensive, okay, and that is a very valuable asset that you will not see on our balance sheet, okay? But that's the channel that we have, and that is what we are now using to monetize, because we can go through our channel at low cost, okay, to sell sponsorships to brands, to sell digital online merchandise on the actual game store, okay? We can sell memberships to our fans who pay us to be members of our clubs, and we can sell merchandise to them. I've got this channel, okay? Really hard to do, and now I just got to figure out ways to authentically monetize our hundreds of millions of fans through that channel. And because I own the channel, our business is high margin, okay? It's a high margin esports, media, and entertainment platform that is supported by these premium esports assets that are really hard to get and very expensive to find, okay? That creates a moat for our business. And we have been able to set up in some of the leading and influential cultural centers of the world. We're here based in Toronto. We've got Madrid, Barcelona, Berlin, and we've chosen those places because they are cost effective to operate in. They've got the right people and the right mix of fans to be able to reach the audience that we have, and it provides us with global scale. And our fundamental bottom line assets are these franchises in the biggest leagues. We've got a franchise in the European League of Legends. That is the single biggest esport in the world, League of Legends, okay? We've got one of the best teams in that league. We've got a team in the Call of Duty League here in North America, which is the biggest esport in North America. Well, Call of Duty, one of the biggest games in the world, and certainly the biggest game in North America. So we've got the biggest game in Europe, we've got the biggest game in North America, and we've also got Valorant, which is kind of like a bit of a hybrid shooter that is very popular in both regions. And these franchises are hard to get, okay? Like, you're not just going to basically come in and get a franchise in these leagues. These franchises are controlled by the publisher. So Riot owns League of Legends and Valorant, Activision owns Call of Duty, and there's only 12 Call of Duty teams in the world, okay? And they ain't selling anymore because we have control. The teams that are already in have kind of veto power over that. And why do we want more competition? Well, we don't. Okay. And so that drives up the value for our own franchise, because if you want to come in, you're not going to get a new one. You got to get one of ours. No difference from traditional sports, guys. And that's what we have. Okay. And there's market transactions out there. So, like, if you take a look at League of Legends, which I said is the biggest esport, okay, in the last 3 years, there's been a number of slots that have been sold. Okay. So people want to buy and come into that league. Average price of $35 million just for the slot. And let me tell you what that means, because I told you my market cap is 35 million, and the slot is selling for 35 million. Okay. What the slot is basically the license to be in the league. It doesn't include the brand. It doesn't include all of those fans that you saw at our event, which was the League of Legends event. It doesn't include the partners, the revenue, the teams, the players. It is just the license. Just the license to be in the league. $35 million average price over the last 3 transactions. Okay. And we own one of those, plus 2 other franchises, and we don't owe a penny against them. Okay. That should get you excited. But even more exciting is that we've been able to grow this unparalleled global reach. We've got over 100 million fans worldwide. Now, one of the things that kind of, I would get concerned if I'm an investor about a number that big is, can you validate it? Okay. What does that mean? That's an awful lot of young people that are following you. How can you show me that it's actually kind of coming through, and that, that I can believe those big numbers? Because let me tell you something. Everybody that does what I do is going to give you some big number, billion here and 100 billion there or whatever. And most of it is just not accurate. Okay. I can validate our numbers. Okay, and I'm going to start by validating that by saying we have among the highest engagement in esports. Okay, and what that means is that not only are there, potentially bots following us, right? But a bot does not like, comment, engage, and show up at an event. Our engagement is among the highest in all of esports because our audience is real. Okay, and then we're growing our monetization per fan, and you can see that in our revenue at high margin. Okay. You have to have a lot of fans to be able to kind of grow that monetization in a meaningful way. Okay. Then we've got the best-selling digital merchandise. If you have a lot of fans, people want to buy your logos and your brands and your stuff in the game so they can show off to their friends that they're a supporter of our teams. And we have among the best-selling digital merchandise in all of esports. Okay, and 100 million people, like I was saying before, can't be in one place. Okay, there's just not enough people to have 100 million 20-somethings be your passionate fans. And so we are in Europe, we are in North America, we are in Latin America, and we've just expanded into China. And that's what makes up our 100 million fans. And by way of one kind of validation, this is a JP Morgan study of the biggest Twitch streamers in the world, okay, by viewership. And right there at the very top, you can see Ebi. He's one of our streamers, okay? He has a huge number of average viewers. He grew 479% year over year in terms of his channel. And when you take a look at the guys beneath him on the list, Warframe, Kai Cenat, Baller League, Jinxie, these are big names in North America, okay? You take all of those guys combined, maybe they make up Ebi. Okay, that's how big he is, because that's how big we are. And that means that we should have a lot of people watching our games, right? We've got a lot of fans, okay? Are they watching your games? And we're number 1 in esports for total engagement, like I said before. But look, if you take a look over here on the our reach side, okay, number 1 in League of Legends in terms of the most watched game was G2 versus Mad. That's our team. Okay, so we're number 1. We're also number 2 against KC. We're also number 4 against SK. 3 of the top 5 games for viewership is our team, okay, because we've got a lot of fans and they tune in just to watch our games. And then when you take a look at the kind of chart below that, that's World's 2024 play-in. Okay, so this is like the World Championship of League of Legends. Right at the very top there, that's our logo. Okay, we got 2.3 million viewers, and then you've got the second team is a team from Taiwan, I believe, and then you've got 100 Thieves. You've got the other kind of teams from around there. But we have big viewership because we've got true fandom. Okay, and that is how you can kind of validate that what I'm telling you is true. And once you own that channel, like we do, you can leverage it. Okay, and we leverage our channel through the ecosystem of content creators, digital platforms, interactive engagement to drive the monetization, right? And this is kind of like a unique thing that we kind of developed by in terms of our business model. But what we do is we use our influencers and the teams and the league partners to create this direct channel, and YouTube and Twitch actually pays us, okay? Instead of us paying them to be, our broadcast partner and can you basically provide some technology so that I can reach my fans, they pay us because our audience is so big and they want access to them as well, okay? And because they pay us, that reduces my costs even further, okay? So I use their infrastructure to reach my audience at not even low cost, at negative cost. Okay, and that results in these sustainably high gross margins that we have. And when you take a look at other companies, media companies in particular, okay, forget about just esports companies. Think of it more broadly in terms of sports companies, media companies, and that kind of thing that is audience-based. They typically have low gross margins. I mean, I've seen them as low as 5%. Sometimes it's 25 or 30% at the high end. We're over 60%. And the reason that their margins are so low is that they got to pay for channel access, right? They're going out and using Google ads or using whatever ad tech company that they have to pay to get viewership. Well, I own the channel. I don't need to pay to get viewership. I charge you for my viewership. Okay. And that is a core asset that we have, which leads to these global partners, right? These big brands from around the world, they come to us and say, let us be associated with you so we can reach your audience. Because it is incredibly difficult to reach an audience of 20 somethings. They ad block, they don't watch TV, they play video games, they do whatever they do, and they hate corporates. Okay. And so what they do is they love us. And so if you want to be associated with our fans, you got to be associated with what they love, and what they love is us. And so we have a whole host of these partners that pay big bucks in multi-year agreements to be associated with our teams, to get their logo on our jerseys, and then for us to do activations, whether it's a live event, a broadcast event, or other things to basically promote their brand. And what they find is that our fans appreciate them supporting something that they love. Okay, if you're, AMD, or if you're Movie Star, which is a brand of Telefonica, a global telco. Look, telcos are usually hated, okay, by almost everybody, as you guys know. Okay, maybe for bad reasons, but generally people aren't going to basically put their local telecommunications company in kind of the high end of their affinity spectrum. And we've got two telcos, okay, and the reason for that is that they are loved by our fans for sponsoring their favorite teams. Okay, so we've got Bell and Movie Star there, two different telcos. Those are our two biggest sponsors for that reason. And so then it's just an iterative process, right? What we do is we create content daily. Our teams are always on, okay? Their games are being broadcast. Our influencers are streaming stuff, talking about their favorite games, okay? We're doing stuff for our partners. We're launching things through our channels. And every day that drives engagement, that drives passion, that drives fandom. And then we turn that fandom into a monetizable asset, right? So here's one of our biggest kind of forms of monetization. These are digital sales, okay? So what we do is, because of our partnership with Activision and Riot and other publishers, they allow us into their storefront. Now, this is their honeypot. This is how they make all of their money, by selling these things on their storefront. And they allow us, through our agreement, to sell our brands and our logos on their stores. So if you're playing Call of Duty, for example, okay, you can buy a Toronto Ultra skin, and you can see examples of it here. And then you can wear that in the game, just like you might wear a jersey for the Boston Red Sox or the New York Yankees. In real life, these guys wear it in the game. Okay, and that's how they show their fandom. And you go over to the storefront and it says like 16 bucks there for the Toronto Ultra team pack. You pay the 16 bucks for the team pack. You get the skin in the game. I get a cut of that deposited into my bank account. As I'm doing this presentation, there's no doubt people buying that. When I'm sleeping, there's people buying that. And they're not only doing that for Call of Duty, they're doing that for Valorant, they're doing that for League of Legends, they're doing that for the biggest games in the world that we're involved in and have a storefront on. Okay, that's 95% gross margins, and we did $8 million worth of those sales in 2024. Okay, growing rapidly. Okay, that drives my margins up, and I love businesses where I can sell things while I'm sleeping. But we thought, okay, look, if we can sell that, why can't we sell our very own subscription-based loyalty platform? And this is a very big thing in Europe. It may be kind of less known over here in North America, but if you're a fan of Real Madrid, for example, or FC Barcelona, you can buy you can join their fan club, right, and have a card that basically gives you the affinity of being a member of their loyalty platform. And so we launched this at that event that you saw a couple of days ago, and we called it the Phoenix Club. Okay, you can buy a digital version of this card, okay, which is a membership card for $30 US. It's actually 30 euros, but I think the exchange rate works the same, okay? Or you can get a physical card. We will send you a physical card for your wallet for 40 euros, about $40, okay? 85% of everybody that signed up wants a physical card. They're willing to pay an extra $10 just to have the physical card in their wallet, okay? And it creates for us a recurring revenue stream that is 100% mine. I don't have to share that with a publisher or anybody else. It's predictable, it's scalable, it's high margin. It gives me annual recurring revenue. This is the first for the industry, okay? It kind of fosters strong emotional ties with the fans, okay? If they want to reach me, what I'm telling them is, look, if you are a member of our Phoenix Club, I will follow you back on X. And if you DM me, I'll kind of talk to you. Okay. And that, believe it or not, it's a pretty valuable thing for them. And so they sign up for those kinds of benefits of feeling connected to the team. Okay. And we had an internal estimate. We blew past that in the first day. Okay. This in the first year is going to be big. I'm not ready to basically kind of disclose where it is, but I think we're already in the hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. Okay. And this is something, and we just launched it on the weekend. This is something that we can grow to be a significant revenue revenue model for us that also provides us with ownership of the data, okay, and a direct relationship to those fans. And so then the business model, like I said, isn't very difficult, guys. What we do is we have this big audience, okay, that is passionate about video games and esports and our teams, okay, and then we sell high margin digital content, okay. We go to sponsors and they connect and pay us to basically be related to our brands. We launch these loyalty programs that I talked about. We have interactive engagement with everybody, and our model to be super profitable is to basically focus on covering all of our overhead, all of my costs. I want to cover them through the partnerships. I want those sponsors to pay for my overhead, okay? Not at 100% of that yet, okay? I'm at about 75% of the way there, okay? Once I get to 100%, then all of this high margin revenue, okay? The membership club, the digital MTX that I told you was $8 million, okay? All of that stuff can fall to the bottom line. And that is what we're working on all day. That is our KPI. That is what I tell our team. We need to get those sponsors to pay for our overhead. If they're covering 100% of our overhead, those beautiful recurring revenue, high margin revenue streams fall to my bottom line, and we're almost there. And that momentum is building. I think that video that you showed at the beginning there, kind of highlights the momentum. But the momentum is also showing up in our financial performance. As I said before, we're on our path to profitability. 72% year-over-year revenue growth. That's outstanding in a business, in an environment where the economy is growing where it is, and that's because those fans are priceless to us. Okay, 103% year-over-year comprehensive income growth, and you can see here, how we have been trying to build this. As I mentioned at the beginning, building the fandom is expensive. There's fixed costs at the start, right? So you got to build the fandom, you got to build the teams, you got to present them to the audience, and then they have to buy in. That's a pretty big gamble, and it was an expensive one as well. But once you do it, you are big. Okay, you are very big. And that's kind of at the pivot that we're doing right now. That's at that kind of inflection point that we're at. And we're really good at M&A as well, okay? Driving part of our growth is 2 acquisitions that we made. We've made 5 acquisitions in 6 years, and 2 of those were in 2024, and both of them were immediately accretive to shareholders, okay? And they're fully funded, and we've got no debt. So we can buy things, we can grow things, and we can basically pay for things as well. Okay. And that's a big part of how we've built our company. And the deal flow that is coming through to me, others that want us to buy them and bring them into our platform is growing every day. Because if you're somebody else out there in any number of businesses and you're looking at yourself and how can I scale, you can look at our 100 million fans and basically say, hey, if I had access to them, I could really monetize what I'm doing. Okay. And that is kind of the magic that we're kind of at, the magic inflection point that we're at right now. And we've got a really, really good team. I got to say, I'm kind of, in my 50s right now. I've done a lot of stuff. This is the best team that I've ever worked with, right? Not only across our management team, but we've got a terrific board. We've got prominent shareholders. We've got Bell. We've got Telefonica. We've got the Montreal Canadiens. We've got Abel. The Weekend is a shareholder. We've got Ibai Llanos, that influencer that I mentioned. It's #1 on Twitch. We've got Gerard Piqué, who's doing his own kind of influencer-led business called Kings League, on our board as well. We've got the people and the talent and the skills and the networking and the money, frankly, that can really kind of help us get to the levels that we want to be as a global company. And 50% of our outstanding shares is owned by insiders. That's the board, that's management, that's insiders. Okay, and then another 7% is owned by corporate partners, which means that about 43% of that is held in the public float. I'll just kind of leave that there if you want to take a look for that. I don't have much more to comment on that, but I can get into it if you want. And let me just finish here by basically kind of reiterating what I said before. Okay, we've got $27 million in revenue. We've got a strong balance sheet with no debt. Okay, we've got these $8 million in digital sales in our first year of offering digital MTX. I just launched a subscription-based membership loyalty club that is already kind of exceeding our targets. Okay, I've got 100 million fans that I can basically figure out ways to sell more and more things through them in an authentic way that resonates with them. We've got profitability in 2025. We've been consolidating the industry, and I've got these monetizable assets. And with that, I'm done. And thank you very much for your time today.
Adam, okay, that was fantastic. So I got a bunch of questions for you. Again, I'm looking at this, through the lens of as an investor. So the first thing I see is, okay, this company is, it looks like it's tremendously undervalued. 35 million Canadian is the valuation. You got multiple assets in there. These franchises that you mentioned are are worth roughly 35 million a piece or more, possibly. Now I've seen some of these esports teams. I think Forbes did a story a while back where they had some impressive valuations, like 500 million, 300 million. Teams like, I don't know, 100 Thieves, Cloud9, a bunch of these other teams. Now, again, what's happened is in the esports space, it's kind of gone through a bit of a shakeout a little bit in the last couple of years, right? It's like everybody got very excited in terms of on the business side. Fundamentally, the esports market keeps growing and growing. I mean, this is a mega trend. But it's a little bit, I don't know if you remember the dot-com boom and bust early on, right? But, in the 90s, everybody knew that the internet was going to be the future, right? Everybody knew, okay, Amazon, YouTube, all that stuff, right? But things got a little bit ahead of themselves. The market crashed. But the reality is those companies kept on growing. Like stocks like Amazon were selling for like $3 a share, I believe, in like 2002, right? There was a bunch of these major winners that came out of that. And of course today we look back and say, oh, of course it was obvious. The internet was obvious that there's a real opportunity here. And now, actually, again, the market keeps growing, and you're one of the, I think, possibly one of the, I don't know if you're the only, but definitely one of the few companies in the space that's actually dialed in a model. We're seeing the numbers speak for themselves. It's like that's where the rubber meets the road. I mean, when you're showing 25, 27 million in revenues, that's impressive, right? You got 100 million So you get this 100 million fan base, which you can monetize further, and there's other opportunities to grow, which I want to ask about. So again, very very compelling, and the market cap 35 million, which seems like very very cheap for this type of business, based on the comps.
Yeah, I mean, yes, thank you for noticing. But look, I used to be a financial guy, but I'm not a financial guy anymore. So I'll leave that up to people to decide, you know, uh, what their views are on that. But your point's a very good one. And let me say, like back in the '90s, I was in venture capital, right? I was starting out in venture capital. I was a smart young guy, and I happened to make some of the early Canadian venture capital investments in some of the biggest companies that ever came out of here. Okay, including I guess most notably BlackBerry. I was the first one to kind of support that company. I actually helped them stave off insolvency. Okay, and of course they went on a big run after that, and whatever happened after that, I was logged out of. But you're right though. There was a crash, and if you had bought, okay, at the height, not at the crash price. If you had bought at the height before the bubble burst, okay, you would have done very, very well right now. Everybody talks about that crash, okay, but it's just a question of staying in the game. And what we went through in esports, and maybe a number of other industries as well, post COVID. Okay, you had a big inflation of valuations around the time of COVID, especially in the video game, the esports, and other sectors. Okay, especially anything having to do with the internet and staying at home and doing stuff. Right, so you had a big inflation of values, and that bubble burst, um, and we kind of huddled down at that point. Okay, we were able to kind of go through, get the benefits of being able to raise some money at higher valuations down the road, and then we hunkered down and we built this industry. And it's not necessarily hard, but time consuming. Okay, and we're on the other side right now, but we've spent so much of those last couple of years just focusing on building the company and the industry to where it needs to be, so that companies inside of the industry can be the next Amazon. Okay, and that's where we're at. And now we're going to start telling the story again. And look, at $27 million in revenue, that's 27 cents per each of our 100 million fans. Okay, it's 27 cents. I've got a lot of room to grow that. I've got a subset of them willing to pay $40 US just to have our plastic membership card in their wallet. $40 US per year. Okay, I can grow that. Revenue per subscriber. I'm going to focus on building the business, and I've been around for long enough. I know that the markets come around when they're ready to come around. And what'll happen is, after these many 5 or 6 years of building what we've built, one day we're going to wake up and our stock is going to be much higher because people have discovered us. Okay, and
Over. It was there.
And then
It's always what happens. Oh my God! Everybody wakes up. It's always it's the way it always works. Again,
and then we're an overnight success, right? And then we're an overnight success.
These cycles. It's always the same story in every cycle. But so let's talk. I got a bunch of questions I want to get into. So you got 100 million fans. How do you define this? Like, is it that you have that these are followers on socials? Like, how do you define this audience exactly?
Okay, here's how I define them. Okay, and everybody defines that differently. So that is a very good question, because frankly, I think a lot of people bullshit their numbers. Okay, apologize for the BS there. But the way that I measure them is that is the size of my channel. Okay, so if I can reach you without having to pay somebody else to reach you, because either you follow me or our teams or our players or anybody else that is associated with me that has an agreement with Overactive Media that allows me, okay, to send messages, kind of action items, calls to action. If I can reach you without having to pay anybody anything, then you're part of my channel. Okay. And that's what I mean by 100 million. And typically what you would have to do if you wanted to reach 100 million people, you would go to Google, right? And then you would basically say, I want to reach 100 million people of this age or that age or whatever demographic you want. Okay. And then that'll cost you a lot of money. Okay. Because it's really expensive to reach 100 million people.
Each time, basically.
Yes, each time, of course. And then all of them hate you because they want to block you. They don't want to follow you. They want to X you, right? So
You you
you're
bring a good
paying to
point.
basically reach people that are disgruntled with you trying to reach them. And in my case, I've got them, and they want to hear from us every day.
Right. You bring up a great point. You mentioned something again, like you have this very, very desirable audience, which is mostly in their 20s. It's probably, I don't know, is it like 80% male? Probably. I don't know. It's got to be
No, you'd be
75%.
surprised. You'd be surprised.
Oh, okay.
It varies by game, but that's why, like we talked about the big ones. But look, we've got smaller games like Pokemon, for example, okay, which has a larger female audience. We've also got some mobile games. Like we have like this portfolio of games that tries to reach different demographics, right? So
Okay.
Pokemon is going to reach a different audience than League of Legends, and then we try to reach, both male and female. But if you were to be at that event that we had in Madrid, I would say it's probably 55% male, 45% female.
Yeah. No, but I know like the male demographic, like 20s, is very, very valuable because again, they're hard to reach. Like you said, they do ad block. They don't want to get any ads. So for your sponsors, your advertisers to be able to reach that audience and to have this level of engagement is very valuable. Okay, so let's
Let me
talk
give you
about
an example. Let me give you an
yeah.
example. Let me just kind of quickly, and sorry friends for interjecting here. Let me give an example of like an activation quote that we did for Bell, which is our sponsor up here in Canada for our Toronto Ultra Call of Duty team, right? And COVID hit, and everybody had to kind of go indoors during that crazy time, and our kind of live events became virtual events, right? Because everything was locked in. Good news was esports could continue because it's a digital item. And what we did is we kind of approached Bell with an idea where we would basically promote how well our team was performing because of Bell 5, which is their fiber offering, which
Oh,
we use in our facility here in Toronto. Okay. And then our team went on a kind of a winning streak. And we would basically focus on this hashtag Bell 5. Okay. And every time our teams won, okay, not just across Canada, but across North America, people would hashtag Bell 5. Okay. Now imagine if you're a telecommunications
that's
executive, okay, that is
yeah.
hated by everybody and
Right,
everybody's
right.
praising your Bell 5 prop. Okay. So then we had a live event. Like Rogers is the big competitor to Bell up here, okay? And Rogers has an agreement with one of the supermarkets, which happened to be next door to our venue, okay? And so they set up a little booth because we wouldn't let them into our venue. They set up a little booth in the supermarket so they could kind of get access to our fans, the thousands of them that were coming up to our live event and post COVID, because they knew the value of what we were providing for Bell. Okay. And see, that's an authentic connection, right?
Yeah.
That's not like I'm trying to advertise to you. That is something that our fans actually lean into and appreciate. And that's the difference between us and say going to Google Ads.
Yeah, no, it's very valuable. So here's a question. I mean, we can get into like the different ways. I guess there's a couple of ways where you're going to create value. Either one is you monetize this audience more and more, but also what other ways do you have to grow the audience to what are kind of some of the ways where you can scale the revenues? Like I guess my question, Adam, is how far and how fast can you scale revenues? I mean, can you make this a $100 million a year business? What's the path? What will be the path to get there?
Absolutely, you can get it to 100 million. Look, just do it on a dollar per fan, right? We're at 27 cents right now. Okay, so a dollar per fan is $1. Okay, is 100 million. And I think what we want to do though is we understand our audience very, very well. Okay, and we understand that they don't like overt commercialization. And what we need to do is kind of work with them to convince them that spending more of their money on us is something that they're doing for themselves and for the community, right? That we are building. And um, and that's kind of how we scale, by basically providing valuable items that are demanded by them. So let me give you a couple of examples of things that we're not doing yet. Okay, so first of all, I just mentioned to you this this membership loyalty club. Okay, again, that is not blockchain or anything. Right now we provide small amount of services, like you might get a discount on merchandise and a few other things. Maybe kind of get better access to tickets for our live events. Okay, but it's $40 a year if you want a physical card. Okay, and the demand for that came from our audience, not from us. It's obviously very good for us, right? But we didn't want to be seen as being, kind of greedy, right? So we kind of position it out there. We've got these very influential people on our social media, these influencers, okay, that, start basically saying, like, why don't they have a program like that? Okay, why aren't they doing something like that? We would love to support these guys by doing something like that. And then we eventually kind of announced it at the right time, and it is accepted by the community as giving them what they want. Okay, and then they grab at it because that's what they've been asking for, and then they love us for it because we gave them what they wanted. Okay, it really is kind of like a mutual beneficial kind of partnership that we have, and we just basically kind of think of approaches to kind of doing that. One of the big things that we're not doing right now that we're going to be launching in the next kind of year, I would say over the next year, is merchandise. Like, we don't actually sell much in the way of physical merchandise right now for a variety of reasons, one of which being, like, we can't do everything all at the same time. Okay, but I think we could easily build, in within a year or two, like $10-15 million a year just in merchandise. Okay, just in merchandise, and we've got the demand there. Like, people are basically saying, please sell me some of your merchandise, more of it. Okay, and we're kind of working back and forth, creating the demand, and then we're going to start doing drops. And I think, again, eventually that's a big business that we can grow over there. Okay, we can also build our content business. Right now, we've got all of these influencers and all of the kind of monetization that we've got over there, but we are building out studios where we can deliver more of our owned content. Okay, I want Overactive Media to be the influencer that is at the middle of everything, and that means we can broadcast programming and then have Google pay us even more for our reach and what we're doing. So again, those are kind of small, low-hanging fruit. Okay, I'm not kind of sharing with you like big ideas that we can do.
Yep.
These are just little ideas that are there that we can just basically pluck and get done easily. Okay, and I'm going to focus on the easy things right now. The hard part is building that channel. Okay, we're going to focus on that easy part right now. I'm going to keep an eye on profitability. I want us to basically turn profitable sooner. Okay, I don't want to kind of delay profitability for 5 more years. I think we can be both profitable, okay, and growing, and then I think eventually this is a very, very profitable business.
Okay, yeah, I think the key is it's these these incremental additions, these incremental revenue streams. It all starts to add up, right? I mean, sometimes you may have one big hit, but if you go out, you start adding more and more slowly, organically, again, because there's like your audience, you don't want to, they're very sensitive to being monetized, if you will, right? So they want to see value. They want to see, they also know that it's a flywheel, right? They know that this is not free to produce the entertainment. You have to make money to produce it, but as the company makes money, you're also you're able to produce more value for them, as in terms of entertainment value and all of that.
It's their club, and that's what I tell them. Like, and they DM me all the time on my phone. Okay, and I sometimes respond, and they kind of really get a kick out of the fact that they can get to the CEO. If they're a Phoenix Club member, I will respond when I usually I take one day for a couple of hours and go through all of my DMs and respond to some of our Phoenix Club members. Kind of a bit of a concierge service that they really get a kick about. But then what they do is they kind of do that, and then they all kind of go on their Instagrams and their Twitters and the rest of the stuff that they're on, and then they say, "Holy cow, he reached out and kind of talked to me," which then kind of other people say, "Isn't that a great company that we're kind of associated with?" And they don't really even think of it as a company; they think of it as a community, right?
Well, so you're basically a sports team. I mean, it's basically these are sports teams, right? So it's kind of like, and what's crazy is the valuations. I think what are the most expensive value? Is it NFL? I think NFL is like $5 billion for teams right now. $5 billion. Basketball
more than that.
It's more, right? So those valuations are exploding. But here's the other thing: those are old demographics, right? Like where you want to focus on. Like, I think even as Wayne Gretzky said, right? You don't chase after the puck. You got to go to where the puck is going, right? and that was his key to success. And where the puck is going is esports. This, the new generation. I think one of the things is, they don't want to watch, they want to participate, and they can relate more to the esports because this is something that they're involved in. This is part of their lifestyle, right? So Elon Musk
my side,
plays
I've lost sound,
right?
so I can't hear you anymore.
Okay, can you hear me now? It might be on your. I hear you. Can you hear me, Adam? Hang on. We lost. Hang on. Let me try. Hang on a second. Adam, can you hear me now?
I can't hear you anymore.
Okay, hang on one second. Let me stand by. Let's see. It might be. Yeah, it might be. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Can you hear me now? Oh, turn on your the mic. The settings.
No, I'm not muted. I don't really know what's happening. We just.
Okay, hang on a second. Let's see. Settings.
Let me leave and come back.
No. Okay. Technical issues, right? We're talking esports. So we got technical issues here. I think it might be the batteries. Maybe the batteries on his things popped out. All right, I'm gonna keep you guys entertained. Let me show you. Can you hear me now?
I'm back. I don't know what happened there. Technical difficulties.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I think it maybe your earbuds.
No way. No,
okay.
My earbuds are fine, but who knows?
Okay. StreamYard. Who knows? Okay. Well, this is it's the part of the technology, esports technology.
Yeah,
this is all related.
Yeah. If we were doing this in the studio, I'd be okay, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the questions I have. So we talked about I think we were talking about the sports team valuations, right? So we know that traditional sports, NBA, NFL, these are $5 billion+ valuations for these teams. And again, those are older demographics. I think like even baseball has been having a problem, because they're aging out. And esports, again, we're talking about like it's as Wayne Gretzky said, how did he become the most successful hockey player of all time? He didn't chase after the puck. He went to where the puck was going, and the puck is going towards esports. I mean, the market is just growing and growing. I want to ask you what markets are you in? I think you have a big presence in Latin America right now, or like which markets are you in?
Yeah, we go where there's young people, lots of young people. And let me just on the sports teams there. You could have bought a basketball team, an NBA team in late 1980s, early 1990s, like for 25, 30 million, like the same price that you can buy a League of Legends team right now. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was some of the early kind of stats that we were looking at for the industry. And now the Boston Celtics, like I said, were just sold for $5 billion plus, right? You got to be in it for the long game, and you got to wait for the demographics to happen. But the demographics are already happening because, if you take a look at, the four big North American games, NHL, MLB, NBA, NFL, the average age is in every case closer to 50 than it is to 40, right? It's in the high 40s in most of them, and it's getting higher. Okay. Like my son, for example, is a basketball fan, but he doesn't like, even when it's available on TV, he goes to a pirate site and watches it there. Okay, because he can't figure out like cable. He doesn't know he doesn't want to deal with the commercials. Okay, and his friends just basically at his university dorm. That's how they watch it. Okay, and they're losing audience year over year because the older people are kind of aging out and the younger people are not coming in. Okay, they're coming into esports. They're playing Fortnite. They're doing whatever they're doing over there, and that's what we offer. Okay, we own that audience, and I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but for me, the stuff that I liked in my 20s, I still like now, right? That's why they call me a boomer, okay? Because I still like music from the 80s and the 90s or whatever. Like I could talk about Seinfeld, like all of the stuff that we liked, okay? The TV, the movies, the sports teams. My favorite sports teams are the ones that were my favorite sports teams when I was in my 20s, okay? At
This
university
is
and that
why the
kind of stuff.
marketers, this is why your audience is so
Yes.
valuable, because
Yeah.
the marketers, they want to capture your audience now.
It sticks. It sticks. These
yeah.
guys are not going away. Like in 10 years, they're still going to be fans of what we do. Okay. And then they're going to have kids, and those guys are going to be fans. This is not just a one thing. Okay. If you own 20-year-olds, you own the future. And that's what we're focused on every day. Now,
No,
going back, I kind of interjected and I didn't answer your second question. What was your second question?
The second was okay. So I guess the second question. I think.
Oh, you said what geographies are we in? You asked me what
the
geographies.
markets. I'm sorry. Yeah, the market. Yeah, the audio went out. Yeah, I was asking. So which markets are you in, like geographically right now?
Yeah, our biggest market is Europe. Okay, Europe is in the West. It's the best market in esports. Okay, it has more fans that are more passionate. Okay, it's got more sponsors. Like the business model for Europe is about 3 to 5 years ahead of the U.S. Okay, and the U.S. is kind of catching up, but it really kind of grew first. It grew first in Asia. Okay, and now it's kind of growing really rapidly in Europe. And the U.S. is for a variety of reasons a little tougher. Okay, but you just got to be smarter about how you're doing it. Okay, and so we're among the biggest, probably the biggest in Europe. Okay, focused out of Spain and then across the rest of Europe. Okay, and because of our background in Spain, Spanish is a really, really good language because it is a global language, right? So we've got fans in the U.S. that are Spanish speaking, and then Mexico. I think when I take a look at our followers, we've got like tons in Mexico. I would say our biggest kind of demographic in the West would be Spain and Europe first, US second, then Mexico, okay, then Chile, believe it or not, okay, then Canada. Okay, so those are our top five, but we're also big like in Brazil. We're big in Colombia, like all through kind of the Americas and North America, okay, Europe. And then we've just expanded into China. China is the biggest esport market in the world because they are a very big populous country. They've got a lot of people there, right? And they are crazy about esports in a way that I think is just maybe 10 years ahead of where we are. The single biggest sport in China is League of Legends. Okay, it's not like ping pong, which I don't say that to be derogatory. Ping pong is big there. Okay, it's League of Legends. They've also got some mobile games like MLBB, Honor of Kings. Like esports is that is the biggest market in the world for esports. And what we found, without doing any marketing in there, we're in a game called Valorant. I think I mentioned that's one of our key franchises. We just entered that for the first time in 2024, right? So we weren't in it in 2023. We came into Valorant. Coming into Valorant, like Riot basically approached us and they said, we want you to be a part of this partnership program. They gave us a franchise. And then they put our skin, meaning that digital item, into their game. So you can go onto the store in Valorant and buy our brand called Koi in the game. Okay. And our biggest single market was China for revenue in that game. All right. And when I looked at that, I said, wow, well, there's an opportunity that we haven't, we didn't market, we didn't have content. They just know the brand, right? And in China, they really value Western-based brands, right? They kind of think if it's cool in the West, they want to be a part of it. And so China was number one, US was number two for revenue, and Spain was number three in that particular game. Okay, so now we're leaning more into China because they love us already without me doing anything. How much are they going to love us if I've got stuff going on over there?
So basically, China is a new market for you. Basically, when did you enter that? That's just
this year. Just this year. So we announced that in the last month. Okay, and so what we do, in order to basically broadcast in China, you need to have you need to be on their platforms, right? It's not like Twitch or YouTube. You got to be like on Weibo, Bilibili, and they've got their own kind of versions of our stuff over here. Okay, so we've launched those channels. Okay, to get followers, just like we have the 100 million over here. We want to get. I'd love 100 million over there over some time, and so now we're creating content for the Chinese market. Most of our content for the Chinese market right now is our current content, kind of redone and simplified Chinese for them to basically be able to understand it. Our growth there is phenomenal. It's about 3x our expectations when we put that together. Okay, but what you need in China is like a long game. Okay, when you're dealing with anything in China, they always kind of have like 5-year, 10-year plans. And our kind of view over there is you got to be in there, okay, and then you got to grow that. And since we've been over there, the leadership of the esports industry is now reaching out to us. They've invited me, for example, kind of to be a keynote speaker at their biggest esports event in Shanghai later this year. And they want to develop those relationships. We've got sponsors that are already starting to basically say, hey, if you guys are engaged over here in China, we want to sponsor you. And, with respect to geographies like China or in Saudi Arabia, where we're also kind of growing pretty rapidly, that's a big market.
Middle East is big, right? That's big for esports. I think, what's his name? The
huge.
King Salman. Or what is he? Prince MPS. He's a big fan of esports.
Yes.
I think he's doing like an esports city, right? That's like in the new thing they're doing. What is it called?
He's doing it. Yeah,
he's doing it. Okay.
Yeah, he's doing it. Yeah, he's doing it. And they've launched the Esports World Cup, which we are one of the partners in. So what they do for the Esports World Cup is they bring all of the biggest teams into Riyadh to play 40 different games, okay? And then you basically launch like the winner, the best club in the world, across all of the games. $70 million prize pool. They literally are probably spending like hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of production and everything else to do it. 2023 was the inaugural year. We were one of the founding partners in that. 2024 was the inaugural year. 2025 is year number 2. We finished 11th in the world of 700 teams at the Esports World Cup. We were one of the highest engagement teams across all of the ones that were there, for the obvious reasons that we're a very big club. And we're looking to grow that, kind of year over year. And look, some of these geographies are again, we have a very young, slightly progressive audience, as young people tend to be, okay? And they're concerned about stuff like what's happening in China, what's happening in the Middle East, and that kind of thing. And that's something that we communicate with our fans on all of the time to kind of keep them informed. And our messaging is really clear. Like we're here to reach the youth of the world. I'm not here to reach the politicians. I'm not here to reach the people that are basically running things. And our kind of objective is to bring joy and engagement to the young people of the world. And we stay out of politics, okay? And I can tell you that a young person in Saudi Arabia is not going to care about politics, okay? And we shouldn't punish them or somebody in China for actions of other people, or they might say actions of the U.S., okay, or actions of their governments. So, we go below the politics, and we just basically want to build fandom across the world with these young people that all want to share in their passion with us.
Yeah, no, it's again pointing to MBS. Is it Prince Salman? Right?
Mohammed bin Salman.
I think they were asking him like, what are your hobbies? And he said, I love video games and esports. I mean, he said like literally on an interview.
He does. I know. I met him. Last year at the event. So yes, he holds a big esports conference for all of these esports World Cup teams, and the leadership, like the CEOs and the other kind of guys that run the teams, have a dinner where all of the top kind of Saudi officials, including himself, are there. And I mean, they want to look, they have their own objectives. I won't kind of speak to their objectives. I think their primary objective is they want to engage more with the West. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they've got some transitions that they're trying to do in terms of their global scale. And what they've realized, and I think rightly so, is that, you want to reach young people. Okay. And the best way, for all of the reasons that I said that we're the best way to reach young people, he has decided the best way to reach young people is through companies like us, and that's what that's what they're doing. And he also wants to drive tourism. He wants to bring gaming companies, like video game companies, into the region. He's offering subsidies to us. Like if I wanted to move our operations to the Middle East, I could probably get a big check and go over there. I don't think we're ready to do that right now, but we do see, heightened engagement from people. Like if you want to reach the audience, this is the way to do it. Okay, that's kind of what I'm saying. And you see that in
But no,
China, you see that in Saudi Arabia, you see
there's
that
big
in the US,
audience.
you see that in Europe. Yeah.
No, there's definitely okay. So bottom line is like right now, it's kind of like again, it's one of these interesting things. When markets sometimes like when you have all the best opportunities, like everything is really lined up at the inflection point. That's usually when the stock is at the lowest, right? Because everybody bought, it's always buy the rumor, sell the news. Now that you have the news, now that you have the fundamentals, the stock is low. So now it's again the news cycle can start. People are going to get, if you can deliver upside surprises in terms of revenues and earnings potentially, then things can get very interesting. So you mentioned, and I don't know how much time you have, but I just want to finish off a couple of points. You're entering China. You're entering the China market, which is again that hasn't accounted for any of your revenues.
We're not there at all right now. We just started. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a big blue sky potential, if you will, the Chinese market. You mentioned something interesting. Like how did you generated revenues there? What did you do? You were selling these skins, these in-game skins. That was the product. Okay.
Yeah. So if you recall, I had a slide there that basically had a Toronto Ultra kind of stuff, and you can buy the Call of Duty things right over there. You can buy Call of Duty is not available over there, but you can buy Valorant or League of Legends or other games. And so you're playing, Valorant in China, and you want to show off like your favorite team, and you go to the online store. I think it's like $20 to buy our skin, and then your kind of gun in the game and your jersey in the game is our branding. And lots of them wanted to do that.
And how much did you generate from that? What kind of revenue did you generate?
Total of our 27 million. Okay, in 2024, $8 million of that was those digital items. Okay, across our games, and that was the first year. Okay, where that was available. Before that, it was done in small amounts. Okay, and what we were able to do in conjunction with the publishers is to convince them that it's a good idea for them and their game to let us and other esports teams into their online stores. Okay. And that helps to drive purchases because that's how they make their money too. Right. And then we share the revenue together.
Yeah, that's and that's also massive margin. It's like 99% profit margin, right? So it's a digital image.
What I do is, so when I say 8 million, okay, that is my cut. Right. So I don't record, there's a gross number. Okay. And then from that gross number, you've got like storefront fees, transaction stuff, whatever. Right. You got a whole bunch of things. And what I do is I just kind of report the stuff that goes into my bank account. And that is very high. That's like 95% gross margin. Okay.
Okay. Very impressive.
Yeah, so think about it like it's for people that don't do esports or video games. Think of it like buying something on your phone. Okay, no different from that. You've got your app store on your phone. Okay, and you go and you buy whatever an app and you spend some money on your phone, and 30 cents of that goes to Apple or whoever the storefront is. Okay, then there's the rest of the transaction stuff, and then you get a cut back. Okay, but in esports, it's the same thing, except the store is not the Apple store necessarily. It's the store that is run by Activision or Valve or Riot or whoever basically runs that. And most of the esports games, like League of Legends and Valorant, for example, are free. You don't have to pay for them. Okay, so you don't pay for the game. Okay, and all of the money that they make comes from buying stuff on that store. Okay, and
so they're going to be motivated. They're going to be motivated
to basically sell. Yes, because that's how they make all of their money. And they're looking for ideas of how can we sell more stuff on our store, right? And so, but we are like the esports companies that have been invited in, for example, in Call of Duty, there's only 12 of us. Okay. Those are the only non-Activision things that you can buy on the store. Like they control it 100%. That's all of their revenue. Okay. This isn't like the iPhone where you can just basically go in and say, okay, well, I want to sell stuff on the App Store. Okay. This is like, no, to come in, okay, you have to have a license with us. We have to like you. You have to kind of approve your stuff. And if you get in, okay, we will put you on the store, and we want to make sure that you're accretive to what we do because 100% of our revenue comes from that store, and we don't want it crowded with things that basically confuse the customer, right? So those are very, very important pieces of real estate to be on there, okay? That is like critical to to our monetization plan, but it's also nearly impossible to get on, okay, unless you have a partnership with a publisher in their esports franchises.
How big can this grow? Like you did 8 million last year with these digital skins, which I think is, I mean, this is a great business. It's like free money almost.
Yeah,
How big can this go? Because that was the first year. You're saying that was the first year you
yeah.
started doing it.
Look,
I mean, can I
I
do
don't
a
have a
hockey stick
trend.
projection? Is it going to
I
be,
don't have a trend yet.
50
I mean, the
million?
problem is I don't
Okay.
have a trend yet, right? I've got 1 point. Okay, so
Right.
if I would have said, if you would have asked me this a year ago, how big do you think it's going to be, and I gave you a number, it probably would have been too low, right? Because the higher number surprised us, and let's see where it goes. I'm obviously very optimistic. Like the sales on like League of Legends, I'm going to say probably is $1 billion franchise. It probably makes billions of dollars a year, okay, in terms of revenue. All of that revenue comes from that online store, okay? Call of Duty and Warzone, for example, and Call of Duty Mobile, that's also a very big revenue driver through the online store. Valorant is also free to play. That's one of the biggest shooters in the world, okay? 100% of that revenue comes from that online store, okay? Hundreds and hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars. I don't have access to their numbers, okay, but they're big. Global, okay, and of all of that, we're 8 million across all three of them, right? So can that be, a multiple of that? I don't know, okay, because I've only got one item, but I do know that the opportunity is big, and and we also have again, this idea of selling our own loyalty program, right, runs kind of really closely with that, because we were thinking, like, if people want to buy our digital skin and I have to share that with Riot or Activision or Valve or whoever else, okay, why can't I sell my own thing and not have to share it with anybody, right? And that's kind of part of how we launched our digital kind of platform, because if I can sell, let's say $20 million of skins, of which I get $8 million, well, what if I sell $20 million in the loyalty program and I get to keep all of it, right? And
Yeah.
so again, those opportunities I think we're looking at. And look, I'm a $35 million company right now in terms of my market cap, and that's with cash and no debt. And with these,
How much
like, I don't need to
cash? How much
sell.
cash? Yeah. How much
Just under
cash on hand?
7 million, just under 7
Okay.
million right now. Okay,
That's
so
pretty
I
good.
don't necessarily need to sell, like, like I could sell you in any one of the things that I've talked about, okay, and we're worth more than 35 million, right? And maybe I'm kind of doing too much kind of selling, because the opportunity is really big, but the valuation is very low, and I really don't need to sell very hard, I think, for somebody to do some light due diligence and to figure out, hey, these guys, the entire company's enterprise value is less than the value of one of their franchises, right? That
Right.
they could sell if they wanted to. And so I would say, as kind of like a pitch, okay, look, just believe that, okay, and we're a good buy, okay, and then believe 5% of the rest of that, that we've been talking about, and we're a great buy, okay, and if you can believe 100%, if that happens, okay, then this is one of the transformational kind of small cap companies that you can see available for you today to purchase on a public market.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, for investors, I always talk about this is first you want to make sure that your downside is taken care of, right? And then the upside takes care of itself, right? So the downside is, the stock is valued basically for less than the price of, one of these teams. These team valuations are, I believe, only going to grow. Again, this is my opinion, but I think the popularity of esports just keeps growing and growing. It's a generational mega trend. It's not stopping. You just, I mean, the business model, I think the business model is relatively new. Again, this is like people have just been figuring this stuff out in the last couple of years, if I'm not mistaken, right? So you're just like, so this is just starting to happen now. As you iterate, as you come up with new ideas, new revenue streams, new ways to monetize, it could grow exponentially. I mean, this is how these things always happen, right? Like nobody thought the Apple would make all their money from like what do you call it? The Apple the store sales, right? It was always on
The App Store, yeah.
The App Store, yeah.
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah,
thought there was,
sure, yeah.
So it's like nobody had any like comprehension how big that could be, and all of a sudden that's like a gold, like a massive gold mine. And it might be bigger than the whole. I mean, that's like the biggest thing, right? So it's
Well, it's
there's
30 cents on everything that goes through, right? That's a pretty good model,
yeah.
right? That you have that where basically people are paying you for access to their audience. That's what Apple is doing. Like the reason they can charge you 30 cents for everything that goes on there is because they control the audience, right? What Apple does is they have, and Google as well, have like access to that consumer channel. That's what the value is. And that's what I was saying earlier on. Like we've got this consumer channel that I've got access to that I can reach them at no cost, okay, just like Apple does and Google does, okay, or a social media network out there, okay. I can access them. Building that is really, really, really hard. Like if you were to basically take a look at what we've done, okay, and you say that you want to do it again, I'm going to basically create what these guys have, 100 million fans, and do that. I am not kidding when I said that you could probably spend $1 billion and not be able to do it, because what goes into creating like the magic that became the App Store, okay, can't be repeatable, because otherwise 20 people would have done it and you would have had 20 app stores, right? And what happens is, you need like a confluence of all of these things, like some viral
Yeah.
stuff, some personality stuff. Like you need all this stuff at the right time and the right place to get the engagement. And once you have the engagement, those 100 million fans are not going to go to some other team. Okay, they're mine now. Okay, and the to create what we have would cost you multiples of what we're worth. And for us right now, again, and I say this humbly, we're going to work hard. We're going to continue to basically try to drive profit. I've got this incredible asset of 100 million fans who love us. Okay, I will not do things, okay, that piss them off or that seems like super commercial or kind of, overly corporate. Okay, we're going to basically work with them to continue to offer things that drive their passion and interest in what we do, and then we're going to monetize on a per fan basis as we're growing the fans, right? So right now, for example, if I go from 27 cents to $1, that's growth to 100 million in revenue, but I'm also going to grow from 100 million fans to some multiple of that. Okay, so you grow the number of fans and you grow the monetization per fan, okay, and you can see that exponential growth going. And because our margins are so high, it drops to the bottom line, right? It is scalable, okay? Like I think at 50 million, okay, my target would be, and I'm not going to say when I'm going to get to 50 million, but at 50 million, I think I can make $10 million at the bottom line. This is not just like a profitable business. This can be a super profitable business because incremental revenue is at such high margin that it can drop to the bottom line, okay? And then that can fuel additional growth in fandom and everything else, right? So what we have here is not just an esports company, it is a platform. It is a platform for engaging young people, right? Building fandom and, kind of delivering monetization through them as you're growing the base. It is really kind of fulfilling to kind of be where we are, but we just did this. And this is what I'm saying, like that video that you showed, we've been working on this for 5 years and it kind of came on overnight, like building the fans, getting the content, doing the team, all of the stuff that we're talking about, right? And then we held this event and like it was just magical. Like you kind of look at it and you say, like, we did it, okay? And this is the first interview that I've had since. Okay, so we did it,
Okay.
and nobody knows yet because who over here is following what's happening in Madrid, right?
Right.
So,
No. I think in the U.S., the esports, again, like you said, it's not that big. People play video games, but the esports is not as big as it is like in Europe, in China. And again, the Americans are usually like a little bit behind, so I don't know what's going to be the thing, but at some point, it's going to go off, and people, and I think the market's going to explode. Look, I mean, generally speaking, the trends are towards people want to participate, right? Like if you look at like what happened in Las Vegas, it used to be years back, people would go there to go to a Frank Sinatra concert, or they'd watch a show. They want to watch a show, right? Today, all the money is made from clubs. People want to participate. It's all like they make billions of dollars from nightclubs. People want to participate, and the video game thing is the same thing. It's like people want to, it's something that they could participate in instead of just sitting back and watching on a screen. So it's something, and it's something
they do both.
they could relate.
They do both.
They could relate
They do
to
both.
it. They do both, right? But they do because it's not like football. How many people that watch football actually play football, right? How many people out of the football game watchers, NFL game watchers, maybe 5% of them have ever been tackled. Maybe less, maybe 2% have ever been actually tackled on the field, right? With video games, people watch because also it improves their skills. So it's like kind of like it's a flywheel thing. It's like, it's very powerful.
There's part of that, but there's also a bunch of people that don't play, that just watch, right? Because the storytelling is really compelling, right? Like, look, let me give you a kind of an example. We had a kind of, there was a Call of Duty major in Miami, actually, this past weekend as well. While we were doing the thing in Madrid, one of our other teams, our Call of Duty team, was in Miami playing at a major down there. Okay, it was thousands of fans there watching that game. And we had an issue with one of our players, and he kind of wasn't able to come down. And our substitute, so we had to get a substitute, right? And typically, unlike kind of normal sports, traditional sports leagues, like we don't have like a bench full of guys, right? We just kind of have our core guys, and there's no reason why they can't play. And then if one of them doesn't, we can kind of sign somebody to a short-term contract to kind of replace him. So we signed this young kid. I think he's maybe 20 years old. Okay, his name is Mercules, is his kind of gamer name, right? Never played in a professional thing before. He had like I don't know, 15, maybe 5 hours notice. Okay, you're coming up to the big leagues, dude. Like, he was there just to play like in the lower level tournament. Okay, we brought him up, we put him in our Toronto Ultra jersey. He's in front of the audience. Okay, and the kid played out of his mind. Okay, like he was like just
a Hollywood story. This is the Hollywood story, right? This is the
we finished third. Okay, everybody thought we were going to lose right away because there's only 4 players on your team, right? So if one guy can't play, that's 25% of your team now. That's changed out. And you've got like planned plays and moves. So even though we've got a really, really good team, everybody figured we were going to lose out because who is this kid, right? And so anyway, that run, was the story of the major. Like, all of the fans were basically cheering this young kid's name. Okay, and obviously that makes for great content. Okay, everybody's really engaged. Okay, we're working on signing him to be part of our thing. But like, those stories are real, whether you play Call of Duty or not, right? Like, so like, the players, the personalities, the kind of the victories. And in many cases, like, you see yourself in him. Like, you're 22, 23 years old. You think, like, I know people like that. This isn't like a guy that, has been playing NCAA, for years and now goes up to the NBA. This is a kid that's like you, okay, that, went to Miami for the tournament, and now he's on the big stage, and now he's going to get a contract, right? And you relate with that. And that drives fandom and passion. And the storytelling here is real to our audience. This is the life that they live, right? Hollywood and professional sports is not the life that they live. And so, a lot of them play the game, but others just love the storytelling, right? And we do both, right? I just want to basically create passionate fans, right, that love what we do. Okay, and that want to be a part of the community. And there's so many different ways to do that. And like, that was a really good example of one way to do it that just basically comes up spontaneously, right? If you are in the right place at the right time, good stuff will happen that you can take advantage of.
Yeah, Adam, there's a lot to unpack. I got a bunch of questions. We're running. I mean, I know I don't want to take up all your time. I've got 2 last questions.
Okay, 2 last questions, because I'm kind of running out of time, but I want to give you all the time that you need as well.
Yeah. Okay, so let's what's your vision, for Overactive? Let's say 2-3 years out. What assuming everything goes right, which never happens, but assuming things do go right, what could the company look like 2-3 years from now? I don't know if you want to talk about revenues, or business.
No, I'm not going to talk about revenues. We have all of the pieces that we need right now. Okay, so over the next 2-3 years, I'm going to focus on revenue per fan. Okay, and like I was saying before, like, we're not doing enough on merch, we're not doing enough on content. We can do more in terms of like those legacy, like the membership programs that I'm talking about. There's a number of low-hanging fruit, okay, that I can put through our consumer channel, okay, that we have to do well. So a part of it, I would say the one part is execution. Okay, I've got the pieces, and now I've got to, like, that's really, really hard, but I have to kind of, I've got like a breakaway, if you want to use like a hockey kind of metaphor, and it's an open net, but I got to get it in the net. Okay, so right now I got to focus on getting it in the net, because a fail here would be on us. We've got everything else together, so I got to do that. Then I need to kind of grow this in the emerging regions that we're in. Like we just launched, we've got a team in Mexico now, right? I've got so much demand across Latin America for us to be doing more over there. So I've got to look at opportunities over there. I think we can be significantly bigger. Like I've got very little revenue from Latin America right now, and I've got people asking me to bring them revenue, okay, that they want to give me revenue over there. So I've got to figure out that plan. Mexico is a good way to do it because it's in North America. It's in a friendly time zone for us, and it's also part of our free trade agreement with rules and standards and everything that we can basically understand better. So that's one kind of area, and then China is the next big kind of focus that I want to kind of focus on. And I want to let you know, like the name that we are going for on our teams is Koi. Okay, so KOI, Koi, and we've been thinking about this for a long time. Like this isn't just something that came up. Koi is a kind of a fish. Okay, it's a carp.
Right.
It's a kind of a carp, right? And even though we're just entering China now, right? When the name Koi was being floated around and we decided on it. Years ago, we chose it for a couple of reasons, right? One is you can say koi in every language. Okay, koi is the
Like
same in
Kodak,
Spanish and
like
English.
Christ, one of those, yeah.
Exactly, right? So
Yeah.
koi can be
Cool.
said in Mandarin and Korean and Japanese and like in every language, it is always koi. Okay, and it's
Yeah.
easy to say, and it's 3 letters. Okay. The second thing is it kind of is part of Chinese mythology, right? The koi is a fish that basically was trying to jump over a barrier, okay, that it was kind of stuck in the river there, and it kept persisting. Like it kept persisting, and it jumped finally over the barrier. And when it got over the barrier, it converted into a dragon. Okay.
Oh,
And so
wow.
that is a very meaningful myth story in China, right? And that is also kind of a very meaningful uh, message of what we're trying to do, right? We're kind of like there was barriers and we're persistent and we're kind of figuring it out and we're jumping over them. And, we're going to kind of on the precipice of turning into a dragon. It's kind of like what we're about as well. But we put that together because we've got global ambitions in terms of what we want to do, right? And so where I see this, fully formed is many times bigger than where we are, okay? Where we are a global, kind of sports and entertainment and lifestyle brand that has the most passionate fans, kind of in the world, part of our community, okay? And we're a smaller version of that right now, okay? And it's just a question of basically with time and iteration, kind of filling in the pieces and doing what's needed to be done. This isn't like a concept stock anymore. Like we've like you said, we've got 27 million in revenue. Like we can fill arenas. I've got 100 million. Like I've got the pieces that I need. Now I need to stick the landing, right? And I see the runway. It's clear skies. Okay, so we just got to basically make sure that our
Yeah,
hands are
fuel. You have
on the
fuel in
wheel.
the tank. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So but you can't take your eye off that landing, right? I mean, you got to basically get the landing, and with all the excitement of everything that we're doing, we had like our management meeting this morning. It's kind of like, guys, like we've got to do this and this and this and this, and we've got challenges, and that's going to take work. And everybody is singing our praises right now. And if we screw up, everybody's going to run away and tell us about how we kind of failed on the landing. And I think like the good thing is we know what to do and we have the resources and the knowledge to do it. Okay, and that is the best thing that you could say, because it's on us now, right? We've done the things that are not repeatable. Now we just have to do the stuff that just takes time and patience.
Okay. Last question, Adam. This is it. I promise this is the
All
last
right,
question. And this is
this has
what
been a
we
great
always
interview,
ask.
by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is what we always ask CEOs at the end is, again, in your opinion, I always ask CEOs at the end, in your opinion, what are the top 3 reasons why, investors should consider Overactive today?
Well, I think we've spent most of this time talking about it, but look, if I'm gonna
We have
give
to
you
wrap it
the
up in
top 3
three.
reasons,
Three. Give us the
yeah,
top 3.
I'm gonna say we are the best of breed in what we do. Okay, so if you're looking for something, okay, and you've got the option to buy, kind of anything in a particular business, okay, you want to buy the best. And I'm telling you, we are the best. Okay, and I think we're increasingly recognized as the best. The second reason is that we are in one of the most kind of explosive growth markets in the world. Okay, young people, video games, esports, digital platforms, social media, all of that stuff is the future of both entertainment and sports. Okay, and it's just at the starting ground. And so we're the best company in one of the one of the industries that is best positioned for explosive growth. Okay, and the third reason I would say is that we've already got the assets that we need and they've already been paid for. Right, so we don't have to kind of bear the risk of entering it and figuring it out and telling you what I'm going to do. I can show you. Go to Edgar or CDAR or whatever and take a look at what we've done. It's all there publicly for you to see. Right, we've got all of the assets that we need and we've paid for it. Okay, and we own the audience. And now we just basically got to do it. So what you're doing is you're limiting your bets to execution, right? And you're buying part of what is almost impossible to replicate, which is getting access to the teams and the channel. So, if you want a moat, okay, with the best in class company in an explosive industry, I think those are three solid reasons to take a run at OAM or OAMCF and just put it in your portfolio. Look, and I know there's a lot of traders that are probably there, but put it in there and leave it there for a couple of years. Let us kind of do our work. And at some point, guys, I'm telling you, like I've been around for a long time. At some point, I'm gonna wake up and people have discovered us, okay? And then we're gonna be an overnight success. And you don't want to miss that because that's gonna come when it's least expected. So you just got to pick it up, sit there, and then one day you're going to wake up and say, "Holy shit, I'm a pretty smart guy for having bought this," last year or whenever that was.
Yeah, as you said, this is a really a long-term stock because this is like a long-term cycle. The esports thing is just getting started, and as you're proving right now, the business model is, nobody really knew what the business model was. You guys have figured it out, and you said you're the best play. You're the only public play that I'm aware of. Everybody else blew up.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of other companies, or not a bunch, but there were some other companies out there. They couldn't figure out their model. They're not, they're basically been vaporized. You're basically, I think this is the only pure play on the esports market right now, and that's Overactive. You got exploding revenue. So we got to follow
Look at
the
the
story.
gross margins too. Look at the gross margins too. Like at 60 some odd percent gross margins. We do a lot of things that are really high margin. We talked about 95% and stuff, but we also do some stuff that is lower margin, like at a live event. Okay, that's not going to be a 60% gross margin thing. At merch, that's not going to be 60% gross margin, physical merchandise. Okay, so it's the mix that is important. And what some of these other guys did that weren't able to make it is they focused on pumping up their revenue number, the revenue line, to be a really high number by doing a whole bunch of that low margin stuff, right? And that isn't scalable. And we looked at that at the time, and I kept saying, there's no way, okay, even if you've got $100 million in revenue, if you're doing $100 million in revenue and $10 million in gross profit, I'm sorry, that is a bad business. And anybody that pays a revenue multiple on that is going to probably lose their money, which they did. And so what we did is we focused on high margin scalability, like the stuff that we just talked about, and that's why we're still around. Okay, and again, we're good stewards of shareholder capital. We are a very strong management team. I think we're incredibly smart in understanding our market and our business, and we are going to stay the course. And you need to be there when this is fully formed, and we have all of the pieces to be there 5, 10, 20, and 30 years down the road.
Yeah. I always tell investors, look, when you have these big mega trends, it's kind of like surfing. You can't, if you want to catch the big waves, you can't wait on the sand waiting for the wave. You got to be in the water. So this stock is like you're in the water. At some point, the wave is going to come. All of a sudden, the esports is going to become hot again, and all of a sudden, there's going to be some event, and this is going to, the only pure play is going to be Overactive, and people say, oh shit, the revenues are exploding, and everything else. That's how these things work.
Let me tell you another catalyst. Okay, just really quickly, that's happening in the next year that we haven't talked about at all. In 2027. Okay, so that's actually about a year, more than a year away. But in 2027, they're going to the esports Olympics is going to launch. Okay, so this is Olympic Games official Olympic Games, not just kind of using the Olympic
Like the
word.
Olympics.
This is the
The Olympics.
International Olympic Committee, okay, has approved in odd years, okay, in even years you have Winter Olympics and Summer Olympics, okay, so that's
Okay.
why 26 you have the 26, yeah, there's Olympics in 26 and 28, like every 2 years there's either a Winter or a Summer Olympic in even years.
Okay.
In odd years, you're going to have esports Olympics, okay, beginning in 2027. Okay, so Canada and the US and all of the countries of Europe, like in China, you're going to have like Olympic Games for esports. Obviously, our players and teams, this is going to be on a national basis as opposed to a team basis. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But what that does is it's going to introduce all of this stuff now to a new audience around the Olympic movement. Okay. And getting people to just basically be aware of how big this is. Okay. It's an Olympic, it's not even a sport, it is an actual game. Okay.
Olympic.
Olympic
Yeah.
Games for esports. Okay. And they've got a 12-year partnership. So this will be happening at least for 12 years as a trial. Okay.
Okay.
And I mean, everybody's going to basically know about it. And by that time, like, by 27, I think we'll be in a really good position to be where we are right now. But there's going to be the hype driving up to 27. So you're going to hear more and more and more about esports just from that in the regular community, in the regular world, okay, the non-esports world, say the boomer world, is going to be hearing more about that over the next year and a half. And when they're looking at, well, who's doing what in esports, this thing that's having an Olympic Games, well, okay, that's Overactive Media, and it's the only public stock, and it's doing really, really well.
That's exactly what we look for. All right, Adam, thank you again for your time, and we look forward to hearing more from Overactive in the coming months and weeks.
Thank you. Been a privilege and an